I'm Jennifer Gilmour and I'm an author and advocate for women in abusive relationships. I want to get to the answers to the questions that many have from those that work in the domestic abuse sector, getting an inside feel of what it's really like in their job role and sharing it with all of you. Hi everybody, welcome to the next episode of the hashtag Abuse Talk interviews. I'm delighted today to have Caryn Walker with us, and she is an author and child abuse survivor. So we're going to take this interview a bit calmer, and I really want Caryn to kind of lead this interview really. But thank you all for joining, and don't forget that after this interview you can hop over to Twitter and join in on hashtag Abuse Talk. If anybody doesn't know who I am, my name's Jennifer Gilmour and I'm an author and advocate for women in abusive relationships and run hashtag Abuse Talk. It's just me, I'm a one-man band. I just felt it was really important to talk to people like Caryn and get an inside feel for really what it means to be that person, be an advocate, be in that job role. So Caryn, please can you just tell us first a bit about you and what you do?
I'm 48, soon to be 49. I'm living on the Wirral, but soon to be moving away. And at home with me now, I have an American Bulldog, I have a big tortoise. And my life's in such a different place to what it was 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago. And coming from a background of childhood abuse, I grew up with no love, no nurturing, no warmth, and physical, mental, emotional and sexual abuse, unfortunately, which in my early adulthood led me to carry this weight around my shoulders, feeling like there was a blackness inside me that other people could see. I felt damaged and broken. And in 2010, after many years of not seeing him, I bumped into my father in a nursing home in Liverpool because my grandma was in there. And I realised at that time that I didn't know where he lived, who he lived with, whether he had access to other children, because it was him that had done the abuse against me throughout my childhood until I was 16 when he left. So that I realised then I had to do the right thing and report what had happened to me. So it took me a few days of going to the police station and walking away and going back and walking away. And I did report him. Fast forward a year, he pleaded not guilty and I had to go through a trial with him. And he was found guilty by the jury on 24 out of 24 counts he was charged with, and he was sentenced to 16 years. This is the first interview I've had with anyone since he was released. He was actually let out of prison on New Year's Eve.
Wow.
And I just found out after he'd been let out. And so this is a little bit different for me because I always used to have the security of knowing he was in prison, and now I don't know where he is, which is separate anyway. So that changed me a lot. I didn't know at the time, but reporting the abuse was my first step to healing myself. I didn't know that then, but now looking back, I realised that's what was happening. I was asked if I would write my memoir to give a voice to other victims of child abuse, and also to give for me, I said no at first, and then a couple of years later, I agreed to do it. And one of the things that meant a lot to me was that I gave my sister a voice in my memoir, who sadly died without ever having her own voice. And I did that. A lot of feedback that comes from people who've read my memoir say her name was Jenny, and I feel like I know her, and she has a really strong voice now, and I'm proud of you both. And that's been the most important part of writing my story. But the second most important part was that I wished one person would hopefully reach out to me and tell me that reading my story helped them in some way. And since I published in August 2018, hundreds of people have hundreds. They've may be victims of child abuse, or mothers or grandmothers or aunties or fathers even, or A&E workers have got in touch with me, child care workers, all telling me, oh, your story helped me in this way and that way, to look for signs of abuse or to recognise signs, or can you tell me what to say to my daughter, and it's just been overwhelming, and I hope that never stops. And every single time I get a message, at first it was completely overwhelming and it was a 24/7, I was answering messages, and now it's not so much, but every time, probably every day still one. And every time somebody contacts me, I'm really proud to be able to just give them a little bit of advice, just coming from my experiences. And I try to talk where I can now, and I've attended a couple of conferences and given my story, and I've just been trying to roll from this.
No, I mean, it's, I haven't read your book, but it's definitely one that I personally want to read as well, just for the to be able to try and understand. I always think it's important to read, real people's experiences, something that hasn't been made into something different. But I just want to also say, whilst we're talking, that if anybody is watching this and is, feeling that they can't watch it, that's okay and acceptable. And also, I'm sure Caryn will be able to talk to people, and, I'll put in the information about any helplines as well, because I just thought we should probably mention that side. But Caryn, as I say, I want to lead you more because I am sensitive to the fact of what an awful experience that would have been, and I can't imagine at all being in your shoes and going through what you've been through. But, if it's okay, can you tell us what you remember as a child?
From birth, we were unfortunate enough to be born to two abusive parents. There was, as I said, I was saying earlier, there was no bedtime story, there was no trip to the park, there was no hug, no I love you. For me personally, because I can only tell my side of our siblings, I was only ever told I was ugly, I was stupid, and my mum had this name for me. She used to call me dilatory, and then no one can ever figure out what it was, but it felt like it meant I was just stupid and had no common sense and I was no good, and that's all that we had. On top of that, there was physical abuse by both of our parents, and emotional abuse, mostly from my mother, and then from a very early age, sexual abuse from Norman, my father, until they got divorced when I was 16 and he left the family home. So then my sister was targeted for abuse more so by my mum than the rest of us. She just hated her, and she was taken away. We were all taken away when we were very small children and put back, but then my sister was taken away and she lived away in care for the rest of her childhood, but occasionally came back to us for weekends or Christmas time or for a birthday where they'd let her come back, which is when she was the target of my mum's rage and anger. And sadly, she passed away before she ever had the chance to find her own voice. She used to say she wanted to write her own story and call it A Girl Called Jenny, because my mum wouldn't use her name, and so we couldn't. So I think her name meant a lot to her. So that's why in my memoir, the first line is written to my sister and the last word in the book is her name.
Yeah.
It meant a lot to me to get her side of the story. So I wanted people to know what she'd gone through and that she was a worthy human being with a good heart. And I didn't flippantly write about our childhood. I had a pile full of social services records that corroborated everything I put in my book, because I don't know if you're aware, if you write under your real name, there's only so much you can put in,
Mm.
because you can, to a certain point, what you can't prove can't go in a book unless you use a pseudonym. And so the social services records helped me to write as much as I could.
Mm. Wow. I mean, I suppose what I want to, obviously you had that experience of, Jenny coming away from the family home and coming back. So, I mean, people then clearly suspected that there were warning signs, were there warning flags to other people for that to happen?
Yeah, because neighbours were reporting to social services, and my father actually took my sister in one of the reports to the social services office and said, please take this child before my wife kills her. And after a certain point they did take her, but they kept putting her back. But
Right.
what they never did was look at the rest of us.
Yeah.
It was I was left there to be treated like that by her, and then treated like that by him.
Yeah, so were there any warning signs to the services about the sexual abuse side then, or was it purely, your mum's side of things?
Well, no
So,
one ever knew.
right.
It was as is common with most child sexual abuse victims. You don't say anything, and I developed this ability from a very small age to go through real horrors at home and walk out of the front door and almost throw it behind me and walk forward. So no one ever knew. I was just a quiet little girl in school, and a couple of people, since I wrote my book, have said to me, I knew there was something with you, but I couldn't put my finger on it, or you were just quiet and kind, and so I never picked up on it. So depending on who you are, I suppose, but that putting things behind you and walking forward served me as a child. As an
Yeah.
adult, I'm really trying to work against, because it doesn't always serve you well as an adult to behave like that, because then you're open to be used by people and treated badly and disrespected, and you don't have the voice to say this isn't right, even if you feel it.
So, I mean, obviously you say about being quiet and kind at school. Do you think that wasn't enough of a flag for maybe the school to understand that there was something maybe a little different? Or, because I mean, for me, I always find it difficult to try and inform people of what those kind of signs look like. Were there any signs that somebody could have been able to help you in that moment, to any support services or school or doctors or anyone involved, would they have been able to have known, or did you keep that completely locked inside of you?
I kept it, as you say, locked inside of me. I never gave any hints or signals, I don't think. But I do know now that we've moved on enough that the quiet little child is the one that they watch sometimes. It's not always abused children, sometimes act out. And as we know, looking for inappropriate language and inappropriate behaviour that you shouldn't know as a 6-year-old is a red flag. And acting out can be a red flag, because the child is crying out but doesn't have the language to say what's wrong. Also, the really, really quiet child is one to watch, because they're internalising rather than externalising what they're going through, which is what I think damaged me so much emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, this interview is a first for me, because I can't even, relate to it in the same way. So obviously you had this relationship with your sister, and you've written about her in your book and given her that voice. How did you feel when she was taken away then, and also brought back from your family home?
Well, I was too young to know any different. When she was taken permanently, she was 3, roughly.
Right.
So I was only 2 years old.
Right.
All I knew in my childhood was this bad child, because that's what my mum told us, that she was bad and that's why she wasn't there. And she was told that we didn't want her and that's why she wasn't there. So all we knew was this bad older sister would come back sometimes to get a birthday present or a Christmas present, because when you're a child, you only know what you're told.
Yeah.
The world is so limited and small. We couldn't challenge that. In our minds, we thought she hates us. She doesn't want to be here. And she thought we hate her.
Right.
It was awful. So it was just until I was a fully grown adult, even over the age of 30, I'd say, when I started to put things together and work it out, it was just my reality. It never occurred to me that something was really wrong.
Did you manage to have a relationship with her then in your adulthood? And were you able to sort of create a bond?
In the last 2 years before she passed away, I'd got to an age where, because if basically when we were younger, if my mother was speaking to her, we could. If she wasn't, we couldn't. So it was a very fractured relationship we had with her. But 2 years before she passed away, I just kept bumping into her, and we had such long chats. And I now look back and think, oh, I'm so grateful and thank goodness that we got to have them times. That was probably the closest we'd ever got to be with each other. And we told each other a few things, and I understood a little bit more, and she understood a little bit more. And I'm just really grateful to have had that. I found out in them 2 years that she had a picture of me on her fridge, and I never knew, and that she was really proud of me. And I was like, wow, I thought you hated me.
Oh.
And gosh, I'm grateful to have had that little
That
bit
time.
of time. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, well, when you sort of had that time, were you able to support each other in that sense of like that recovery? Sort of, did it help? Take those steps sort of forward for you and your sort of journey.
No, I wasn't ready at that point. I still hadn't told anyone what happened to me, although I did find out that it had also happened to her on
Right.
a couple of occasions when she'd been around family home. But we never went. I think we were so controlled as children and young adults. It took for me to be over 40 years of age to finally start speaking and accepting how things were. So when I was speaking with my sister, we weren't at that point. We were still very much damaged young adults. So we did speak, and we talked about she was a drug user and she wanted to stop taking drugs. And she gave me this little plan that she devised in her mind as how she was going to stop. And it was wonderful, and it might have worked if she'd have not died. But so, no, I'm waffling a little, I'm sorry.
That's okay, don't worry about it.
I didn't talk about recovery or too many deep things, but we did heal our relationship a little.
Yeah, no, and I think obviously it is quite an important thing to have happened, considering that she sadly passed away a couple of years later. Then, so you've written a book. It's called "Tell Me You're Sorry, Daddy," and it's your memoirs. At what point? I know you've sort of covered this, but at what point did you decide that I am gonna write this down now? What happened?
Well, when I reported my father in 2010, I'd got really ill. Lots of things happened in that year, really bad things leading up to the trial, and some of my family members weren't supporting me. Basically, that's all I'll say. They was on the wrong side, and it was really, really awful. My hair was falling out, and I was getting really sick, and I went away for a few days by myself. Didn't take my phone or anything, but somebody said to me, go in Asda and pick up a book that sounds similar to you, and I promise it'll help you. And so I did. I took this book, and I spent the 5 days I was away in a hotel room or sitting on the balcony. Pretty much that was all I did. I kept reading this lady's book and writing things down that I remembered, and a lot of things came back to me through reading someone else's story, and it normalised my feelings that I didn't ever dare speak out loud because I felt I was the freak. But there was this other lady's story telling me that's completely normal, and it was so valuable. And I wrote things down, and I remember one point in the 5 days standing up off of the balcony chair and writing in big letters in this notebook, my dad's a paedophile. And I promise you, until that moment, that had never occurred to me. It was just what had happened and what had happened to me. But then I realised who he was and what he was. So reading the story, and that helped me so much. When I came back, I looked for an email address on the back because she'd used a pseudonym. And I wrote to the ghostwriter and said, can you please contact the lady who wrote this and tell her how it helped me? And thank you. And she did. And she got back to me and said, I've done what you asked, and I've sent the message to her. Do you want to tell me a little bit? And I told her a little bit about what I was going through and that the trial was coming up. And she said, if you ever want to write a story, it's one that should be told. And I was like, okay, I just need to get through this. So afterwards, I told her what happened, and he got 16 years in prison. And she asked me again, would you consider telling the story? And I said no. Didn't think I could go that far as putting it on paper. But over the next 2 years, I kept hearing stories of people who had either taken this secret to the grave or told on their deathbed, and that means that child abuse had taken every single day of their life away, and that broke my heart. So I decided, I will do it. And so 2 years after I said, I will. And then eventually, all the ups and downs and all the things that go with writing a book, it finally was published in 2018. So that was how it happened.
What a journey. I'm sure the person behind that other book that you were talking about would have been really, just like you receiving your messages, that's made such an impact. You might not have even gone and reported to the police without that. I think it's such a powerful thing, sharing, stories like that. So how did you go about doing it? I know you sort of touched on this, so you managed to get some letters or reports of the social services together. You're responding to the book, so I'm assuming you just put it together like a massive jigsaw piece.
I went to Scotland and had a few days with the ghostwriter, Linda Watson Brown, she's called, and we spent 4 days, and I told her my story, and she wrote everything down. And that, along with personal notes I discovered earlier in my life that one of the ways I could handle my head was to write things down when they came into my head, and that helped from them swimming around all the time. If I knew they were there in black and white and I could go to them and read them, I knew it was validated and it was there, and it didn't have to swim around in my mind. So I had those, and I had the files, and I had my own story that I'd given to Linda, and with all of that, the book was put together.
No, that's amazing. So did that process help you?
Well, I didn't think so at the time. Much like reporting abuse was the first step on me getting better and even accepting that I had problems. And so writing my book, I wished for one person to contact me, which we already covered. Absolutely smashed that one. I wanted to give my sister a voice, and that absolutely has come true. But the third thing to come out of it, which I didn't realise, was how much it's helped me heal more by talking to people and sharing my experience. I know now that sharing your story will give at least one person their voice. And when someone would contact me and say, can I tell you something? I knew then that what this was doing. And the 2 years running up to my book coming out, I lived with constant butterflies in my tummy. I was terrified of repercussions. I was warned about trolling on the internet and my family's reactions, and it was just, oh my gosh, just living on anxiety the whole time. But every single day after it was published, the messages that were coming through were so supportive and so full of love, and I made friends on the internet that I'll probably never meet, and I class them as really close friends. And I realised, looking back, that I was getting better every day, and every day felt a little bit less scary and a little bit more okay. It took me a year of people saying, "Are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of yourself?" And I was saying, "What have I got to be proud of? No, I'm not proud." But finally, like in September last year, I won an Echo Award for courage. And I was finally able to look back on that night a few days after it and think, yeah, I think I'm proud of what I've done. So I think I feel different inside. I tolerate less, and I know I'm healing as a person, and that's just through sharing my story to anybody that can.
No, that's amazing. Obviously, I was going to ask you, how did you feel winning this award? But clearly, that sense of pride, which, I mean, personally, just from going through an abusive relationship, I never felt pride or being proud of myself, and it's a big step forwards, isn't it, when you suddenly go, I've got this sudden feeling of being proud of myself. And at first, when I started to get that sense, I felt guilt over feeling a bit proud, and it's so confusing. So I want to congratulate you on that award. What an amazing achievement, and thoroughly well deserved. And your writing obviously helps. That book has obviously helped so many people, and I'm sure it will go on and help others. And that leads me on to ask, where can everybody get your book?
It's still for sale on Amazon, and it's in all of the Amazon. The US is only a digital download, but all of Europe, you can buy it as a digital download. It's also translated now into French, Swedish, German and Dutch, so you can buy copies in them languages, but otherwise you can buy it as a Kindle download or whatever you read on.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I will put again all of your information in the description of this video, so if anybody did want to have a look, I'll pop it on there so everybody can sort of be a click away to it. What could you just quickly tell us what your website is as well, so we all know where to go to find out more about you and, you know, your work, and see photos of you receiving that award as well?
I have an author page on Facebook, which is my name, Caryn Walker, author. But I also have a Caryn Walker .weebly.com website, and there's a little bit more on there. It's a little bit easier to navigate and have a look at, like you said, if you wanted to look at pictures and see what I've done and articles that have been written and things.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much, Caryn, for joining us today and to talk about something really sensitive. I hope that you're all okay and that the interview went well, and everybody watching is feeling really, I think, should be feeling positive about what a journey you've taken as well. So everybody, the next live broadcast of the Abuse Talk interviews will be on April the 1st. I am aware it's April Fool's Day, but it doesn't matter, it's still going ahead. And if you subscribe to the channel, you'll be notified of the next one. But don't forget, you can go over to #AbuseTalk right now. We're tweeting from 8 p.m. GMT, and I'm hoping Caryn might be joining us. You never know. We're actually going to be celebrating International Women's Day and with a tag-a-thon, so it's all positive vibes, which I think we do need that sort of step, you know, forward there. After hearing, you know, everything that you've had to say. I don't know if I'm going to make it through the book, but I'm going to certainly take that time to, read your story and, process it and probably come back to you about, how I felt, because I do think it's important to sort of talk about what we've read and everything as well. So thank you again so much for agreeing to be interviewed and for spending some of your time with us. It's been, a complete pleasure, especially when it's on something, quite vulnerable, really, isn't it? So thank you. And everyone, thank you for watching. Bye.